Hey everyone, it's Alex, and I am here with my video for the 44th Saturn Awards nominations. Now, the Saturn Awards, if you've been watching my previous videos over the past couple of years, are an award ceremony dedicated to honoring genres like science fiction, fantasy, horror, action, thriller, etc. Genres that don't often get a lot of love or respect at the Oscars or the Emmys. Sometimes it's just because of them not being as good as other films, and other times because of the long-standing genre bias. However, of course, in recent years, bias towards these genres has begun to shift from negative to positive, such as we saw at the Oscars this year with The Shape of Water winning Best Picture, Best Director, and we've seen shows like Game of Thrones, Stranger Things be big players at the Emmys. But the Saturn Awards are still here to honor those genres for the achievements they've made, and so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, the Saturn Awards, if you've never heard of them, have been around since the early 1970s. However, they're one of the few award shows that are not broadcast on television, not on any of the major networks, nor even the smaller networks. I think they do YouTube live streams now, although I'm not sure. It's usually a very low-key event, you know. There might be some press photos of people on a red carpet, and maybe some photos from inside the ceremony that might surface on social media, but there's not like a lot of high press coverage that you get normally with the Oscars, the Emmys, the Golden Globes, etc. So I'm never going to be able to talk about the Saturn Awards ceremony itself, just the winners when I get to that, unless I do find a YouTube video of the ceremony and watch it. But I'm here today to just talk about the nominations themselves, what I like, what I don't like, and what I think got snubbed. So the Saturn Awards have three different types of categories: DVD Blu-ray categories, television categories, and film categories. And there's a lot of nominations to cover, so I'm going to do my best to get through them as fast as I can. So, here are the nominations for the 44th Saturn Awards, starting off with the DVD categories. Best DVD Blu-ray Release: Colossal, Cult of Chucky, Dave Made a Maze, The Devil's Whisper, The Man from Earth, Holocene, 222. Best DVD Blu-ray Television Release: American Gods Season 1, Grimm, The Complete Collection, The Rockford Files, The Complete Series, Twin Peaks, A Limited Event Series, The Vampire Diaries, Westworld Season 1, The Maze. Best DVD Blu-ray Special Edition Release: Lost Horizon, 80th Anniversary, The Lost World, Deluxe Edition, Night of the Living Dead, Reanimator Special Edition, Speed Racer, Collector's Edition, Suspiria, 40th Anniversary Edition. Best DVD Blu-ray Classic Film Release: Kaltiki the Immortal Monster, Deluge, Lifeboat, The Mephisto Waltz, The Old Dark House, Tobor the Great. Best DVD Blu-ray Collection Release: Abbott and Costello Rarities, The Adventures of Captain Marvel, Christopher Nolan 4K Collection, Dracula Complete Legacy Collection, Fritz Lang The Silent Films, The Mummy Complete Legacy Collection, OSS 117 5-Film Collection. Now onto the television nominees, and I should mention for the television and film categories, the window of eligibility is from February 2017 to February 2018. Best Young Actor or Actress on Television: KJ Apa, Riverdale, Millie Bobby Brown, Stranger Things, Max Charles, The Strain, Alicia Debnam Carey, Fear the Walking Dead, David Mazouz, Gotham, Lily Reinhart, Riverdale, Chandler Riggs, The Walking Dead, Cole Sprouse, Riverdale. Best Supporting Actor on Television: Nikolai Coster-Waldau, Game of Thrones, Miguel Ferrer, Twin Peaks: The Return, Kit Harington, Game of Thrones, Doug Jones, Star Trek Discovery, Christian Kane, The Librarians, Michael McKean, Better Call Saul, Carrie Payton, The Walking Dead, Evan Peters, American Horror Story Cult. Best Supporting Actress on Television: Odette Annable, Supergirl, Dakota Fanning, The Alienist, Denai Guerrera, The Walking Dead, Melissa McBride, The Walking Dead, Candice Patton, The Flash, Adina Porter, American Horror Story Cult, Kristen Ritter, The Defenders, Rhea Seehorn, Better Call Saul. Best Actor on Television: Jon Bernthal, The Punisher, Bruce Campbell, Ash vs. Evil Dead, Sam Heughan, Outlander, Jason Isaacs, Star Trek Discovery, Andrew Lincoln, The Walking Dead, Seth MacFarlane, The Orville, Kyle MacLachlan, Twin Peaks: The Return, Ricky Whittle, American Gods. Best Actress on Television: Gillian Anderson, The X-Files, Katrina Balfe, Outlander, Melissa Benoist, Supergirl, Lena Headey, Game of Thrones, Sonequa Martin Green, Star Trek Discovery, Adrian Palicki, The Orville, Sarah Paulson, American Horror Story Cult, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Fargo. Best Guest Performer on Television: Bryan Cranston, Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams, Michael Greyeyes, Fear the Walking Dead, David Lynch, Twin Peaks: The Return, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, The Walking Dead, Rachel Nichols, The Librarians, Jesse Plemons, Black Mirror, Hartley Sawyer, The Flash, Michelle Yeoh, Star Trek Discovery. Best Presentation on Television, which basically means best TV movie or miniseries: Channel Zero, Descendants 2, Doctor Who: Twice Upon a Time, Mystery Science Theater 3000: The Return, Okja, The Sinner, Twin Peaks: The Return. Best Animated Television Series: Archer, BoJack Horseman, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Family Guy, Rick and Morty, The Simpsons, Star Wars Rebels. Best New Media Television Series, which basically means best series on a streaming platform like Netflix, Amazon, or Hulu: Altered Carbon, Black Mirror, The Handmaid's Tale, Mindhunter, Philip K. Dick's Electric Dreams, Star Trek Discovery, Stranger Things. Best Superhero Television Series: Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Arrow, Black Lightning, The Flash, Gotham, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl. Best New Media Superhero Television Series: The Defenders, Future Man, Iron Fist, The Punisher, Runaways, The Tick. Best Action or Thriller Television Series: The Alienist, Animal Kingdom, Better Call Saul, Fargo, Into the Badlands, Mr. Mercedes, Riverdale. Best Fantasy Television Series: American Gods, Game of Thrones, The Good Place, Nightfall, The Librarians, The Magicians, Outlander. Just so you know, that's Nightfall with a silent K, like a medieval night, not like night as in darkness outside. Best Horror Television Series: American Horror Story Cult, Ash vs. Evil Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, Preacher, The Strain, Teen Wolf, The Walking Dead. And finally, Best Science Fiction Television Series: Colony, Doctor Who, The Expanse, The 100, The Orville, Salvation, The X-Files. And now onto our film nominations. Best Costume Design: Jacqueline Duran, Beauty and the Beast, Ruth E. Carter, Black Panther, Ellen Moroznik, The Greatest Showman, Michael Kaplan, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, Olivier Barrio, Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. Lindy Hemming, Wonder Woman. Best Film Editing. Michael P. Shaver and Debbie Berman, Black Panther. Paul Rubel and Christian Wagner, The Fate of the Furious. Gregory Plotkin, Get Out. Michael McCusker and Dirk Westervelt, Logan. Sidney Wolinski, The Shape of Water. Bob Duxey, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Best Makeup. Joel Harlow and Ken Diaz, Black Panther. Donald Mowat, Blade Runner 2049. John Blake and Brian Sipe, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Alec Gillis, Sean Sansom, Tom Woodruff Jr., and Shane Zander, It. Mike Hill and Shane Mahan, The Shape of Water. Peter Swords King and Neil Scanlon, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Aryan Titan, Wonder. Best Music. Ludwig Göransson, Black Panther. Michael Giacchino, Coco. John Debney and Joseph Trapanese, The Greatest Showman. Alexander Desplat, The Shape of Water. John Williams, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Carter Burwell, Wonderstruck. Best Production Design. Sarah Greenwood, Beauty and the Beast. Hannah Beachler, Black Panther. Dennis Gassner, Blade Runner 2049. Paul Denham Osterberry, The Shape of Water. Rick Heinrichs, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Hugh Tissandier, Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. Best Special Effects. Jeffrey Bowman, Craig Hammack, and Dan Sudik, Black Panther. John Nelson, Paul Lambert, Richard R. Hoover, and Gerd Nefzer, Blade Runner 2049. Christopher Townsend, Guy Williams, Jonathan Faulkner, and Dan Sudik, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Stephen Rosenbaum, Jeff White, Scott Benza, and Mike Minardis, Kong Skull Island. Ben Morris, Mike Mulholland, Chris Corbold, and Neil Scanlon, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Joe Letteri, Dan Lemon, Daniel Barrett, and Joel Wist, War for the Planet of the Apes. Best Screenplay. Ryan Coogler and Joe Robert Cole, Black Panther. Hampton Fancher and Michael Green, Blade Runner 2049. Jordan Peele, Get Out. Scott Frank, James Mangold, and Michael Green, Logan. Guillermo del Toro and Vanessa Taylor, The Shape of Water. Ryan Johnson, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Alan Heinberg, Zack Snyder, and Jason Fuchs, Wonder Woman. Best Young Actor or Actress. Tom Holland, Spider-Man Homecoming. Daphne Keane, Logan. Sophia Lillis, It. Millicent Simmons, Wonderstruck. Jacob Tremblay, Wonder. Letitia Wright, Black Panther. Zendaya, Spider-Man Homecoming. Best Supporting Actor. Harrison Ford, Blade Runner 2049. Michael B. Jordan, Black Panther. Michael Keaton, Spider-Man Homecoming. Chris Pine, Wonder Woman. Michael Rooker, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Bill Skarsgård, It. Patrick Stewart, Logan. Best Supporting Actress. Ana de Armas, Blade Runner 2049. Carrie Fisher, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Danai Gurira, Black Panther. Lois Smith, Marjorie Prime. Octavia Spencer, The Shape of Water. Tessa Thompson, Thor Ragnarok. Kelly Marie Tran, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Best Actor. Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther. Ryan Gosling, Blade Runner 2049. Mark Hamill, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Hugh Jackman, Logan. Daniel Kaluuya, Get Out. Andy Serkis, War for the Planet of the Apes. Vince Vaughn, Brawl in Cell Block 99. Best Actress. Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman. Sally Hawkins, The Shape of Water. Frances McDormand, Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Lupita Nyong'o, Black Panther. Rosamund Pike, Hostiles. Daisy Ridley, Star Wars Episode VIII, The Last Jedi. Emma Watson, Beauty and the Beast. Best Director. Ryan Coogler, Black Panther. Denis Villeneuve, Blade Runner 2049. Jordan Peele, Get Out. Guillermo del Toro, The Shape of Water. Rian Johnson, Star Wars Episode VIII, The Last Jedi. Matt Reeves, War for the Planet of the Apes. Patty Jenkins, Wonder Woman. Best Animated Film. The Boss Baby. Cars 3. Coco. Despicable Me 3. Your Name. Best International Film, and this can include any film produced outside the United States, whether it's in the English language or a foreign language. Bahubali, The Conclusion. Brimstone. The Lodgers. The Man Who Invented Christmas. The Square. Wolf Warrior 2. Best Independent Film. I, Tonya. LBJ. Lucky. Professor Marston and the Wonder Women. Super Dark Times. Wonder. Wonderstruck. Best Comic Book Film. Black Panther. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Logan. Spider-Man Homecoming. Thor Ragnarok. Wonder Woman. Best Action or Adventure Film. Baby Driver. Dunkirk. The Fate of the Furious. The Greatest Showman. Hostiles. Kingsman: The Golden Circle. Best Fantasy Film. Beauty and the Beast. Downsizing. Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. Kong Skull Island. Paddington 2. The Shape of Water. Best Horror Film. Annabelle Creation. Better Watch Out. 47 Meters Down. Get Out. It. Mother. Best Thriller Film. Brawl in Cell Block 99. Murder on the Orient Express. The Post. Suburbicon. Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Wind River. And last but certainly not least, Best Science Fiction Film. Alien Covenant. Blade Runner 2049. Life. Star Wars Episode VIII, The Last Jedi. Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. War for the Planet of the Apes. And those are the nominations for the 44th Saturn Awards, so let's talk about what I think of them. Now with the DVD, Blu-ray release categories, I don't really get too much into those, mainly because I don't own all of these, and some of them I've never even heard of, like I've never even heard of Kaltiki the Immortal Monster. The only ones I'm partially aware of are Colossal, which is a really good movie starring Anne Hathaway and Jason Sudeikis and Dan Stevens. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you look for it on iTunes. Maybe, I don't know if it's on Netflix, but if it's there, check it out, or or your public library might have a copy to rent. Cult of Chucky, I've heard about that. I know it was straight to DVD, and I know it's part of the Never-Ending Chucky franchise. I've heard of Dave Made a Maze just from the title, but I have no idea what it's about. Now, as for television, I'm not really going to be able to say too much about these shows either because I haven't watched many of them, and some of them that I have watched, I've only watched a little bit, or I haven't watched the latest season yet. So I have not yet seen Season 2 of Stranger Things. I finally watched Season 1 last summer, a year after it had dropped on Netflix, but I just get so busy mainly with watching movies, because that's where my interest lies more, and being busy with work and everything, that I kind of fell behind on television. The good thing is most of my favorite shows are the shows on streaming platforms like Netflix, so I can, watch those pretty quickly. But with The Handmaid's Tale, they did nominate that for its first season, which I already saw, because the second season, which is going on now, didn't premiere until after these nominations came out. And while I am glad that The Handmaid's Tale got nominated at least for Best New Media Television Series, I'm really frustrated that it got nominated for nothing else. No acting categories. I mean, Elizabeth Moss, who is literally the face of that show, she won a very well-deserved Emmy last year for it, and she easily should have been nominated for Best Actress on Television, and if she had, I honestly think she would have won. And you got none of the other cast members nominated either. In Best Supporting Actor, you don't have Joseph Fiennes or Max Minghella. In Best Supporting Actress, you don't have Ann Dowd or Yvonne Strahovski. In Best Guest Performer, you don't have Alexis Bledel, although maybe the Saturns might have nominated her for supporting if they had, because of how many episodes she's in. Some of the other cast members I forgot to mention, like O.T. Bangbele, I forget how to pronounce his last name. He played Elizabeth Moss's husband on the show. He could have been nominated for Supporting Actor. And Samira Wiley, she could have been nominated for Best Supporting Actress. It's really frustrating that none of the actors got any recognition here whatsoever. And I get The Handmaid's Tale is not your traditional version of science fiction or fantasy. It's more of a dystopian horror, I guess you could say. But it feels very relevant right now, especially with Donald Trump as president. And we've even seen people dressing up in handmaid costumes to protest some of his policies, such as his desire to repeal Obamacare. So it's a very impactful piece of work. So that's really all I can say on the TV side, because the other shows I either have only watched a little bit or I haven't watched any episodes, so therefore I can't properly judge them. On the film side, though, I can make a lot of statements about what I like and what I don't like. And I always mention what I think got snubbed, but this year I came a little extra prepared. Normally I don't write my snubs down because I know what most of them are, but oftentimes when I make these videos there's often some snubs that I end up forgetting to mention, and then I have to make a side note while I'm editing, and this year I hope that I don't have to do that. So this year I've written down my snubs on separate sheets of paper so that way I don't forget any of them when I'm going through these categories. Now, of course, I haven't seen every single movie nominated here, and some movies that I'm not really going to be talking about at all are the comic book movies. I'm not like a snob when it comes to comic book movies. Like, I'm not like, oh, I don't want to go see comic book movies. They're destroying film by being too popular. I'm not one of those pretentious types of people, but I've never really been driven to see comic book movies because I didn't grow up reading comic books or collecting action figures of superheroes or watching older superhero movies or TV shows. They never really interested me, so I've never really had a burning desire to see many of them. And so as a result, I've fallen way behind on both Marvel and DC films. I've seen a few, just mainly from maybe sheer boredom when I was looking for something to watch one night, or in other cases my family wanted me to watch a movie with them. But I do hopefully plan on going back and watching all of them at some point, and I'm going to watch them all in the order that they came out in. I've heard some people say, oh, you don't need to watch these movies or these movies, only these movies are the important movies. But for me, I kind of have to watch everything, because if I feel in a franchise I should watch or read everything just to get a sense of what it is, even if it ultimately turns out bad. But in every category, I can highlight a number of contenders that I feel were rightfully nominated, as well as ones that were not, but probably should have been. So let's get started. So for Best Costume Design, Beauty and the Beast, love it. Those costumes were absolutely gorgeous, and they were a brilliant recreation of the costumes from the 1991 animated film. The Greatest Showman, excellent costume design. One of the positive things about that film, Greatest Showman's one of those films people either really love or really hate. I'm more in the middle. Well, I guess most of the people who hated it, they didn't like hate it with a vengeance, but rather felt disappointed. And I'm one of those people. You know, I thought The Greatest Showman had some good performances, and the songs themselves were catchy, but the story itself, especially the writing, was lacking, and it felt like you're just moving from point A to point B without giving it the depth it needed. And plus, of course, there are many historical inaccuracies. I know for some people that's not a big deal, but it kind of is for me, because I went to college and studied history, and in this case it's drawn quite a lot of criticism due to the fact that P.T. Barnum in this movie is portrayed as a really nice, wholesome person who, you know, looked out for the underdogs and the rejected groups of society, when in reality he used them for exploitation and financial gain. But that in itself is a subject worth a video of its own, and on YouTube you can find plenty of videos in which Hugh Jackman's version of P.T. Barnum is compared to the real-life P.T. Barnum. But the costume design in The Greatest Showman was one of the best aspects of it, for sure. Star Wars, The Last Jedi, you know, really good costumes. Nothing really new in terms of what we see for Star Wars, but decent costumes. Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, alright, but not like great. If there's one costume design that I felt should have been in here for sure, that's The Shape of Water. I mean, those costumes might not be like flashy or unique like, say, those in a superhero movie, but they do a very good job of reflecting the time period that the movie is set in, which is the early 1960s. So for that reason, I think it should have been nominated. For Best Film Editing, Get Out, very well deserved, and I know a lot of people were upset when it didn't get nominated at the Oscars for film editing, so it's good to see it here. Shape of Water, excellent film editing. Star Wars The Last Jedi, really good editing. There were some snubs in here that I felt should have been included. Atomic Blonde, I know a lot of people had mixed opinions about that film. I myself personally liked it, although it certainly has its problems, but I think its editing is really good, especially during some of the fight sequences between Charlize Theron and these thugs, especially that one fight sequence in a stairway, and that was just one of the best fight sequences I've seen this decade. I mean, it was so realistic and gritty, and it just was mastered wonderfully. Baby Driver, I'm really surprised that's not nominated here, because that film has been highly praised for its editing, and it's been nominated everywhere, at the Critics' Choice, the BAFTAs, where it won both awards, as well as the Oscars, where some people thought it could possibly win, but it lost to Dunkirk. And speaking of Dunkirk, that should have been nominated here as well, because what they did in Dunkirk with taking these three stories of land, air, and sea, and telling them separate and then combining them together at the last minute, just absolutely brilliant, and it's a damn shame it wasn't included here. For Best Makeup, Blade Runner 2049, you know, not really like a lot of prosthetic makeup or makeup you normally think would get nominated for this type of film, but, you know, it is set against a gritty dystopian landscape, so it works good for there. Although I haven't seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I can see why it's here. Thank God that's here. I, for the life of me, still can't understand why it didn't make the short list of eligible contenders for the Oscars. That makeup on Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise, fantastic. I mean, you look at photos of Pennywise and you look at photos of Bill Skarsgård in real life, it blows your mind that these two people are the same. And probably the best clown makeup I've ever seen in my life. The Shape of Water, excellent makeup, especially with Doug Jones wearing the suit he had to wear to play the fish creature, because that really was a real suit and not like a motion capture suit that many people may often use today. But Doug Jones, he's an expert at playing these creatures that often require a lot of prosthetic makeup. He played a lot of creatures, I believe, in Guillermo del Toro's other film, Pan's Labyrinth, from a decade ago. And I know on Star Trek Discovery he also plays another creature that involves wearing a lot of prosthetic makeup. Star Wars The Last Jedi, no surprise to see that here. And Wonder. Normally that might not be a film nominated here at the Saturn Awards because it doesn't really fall under science fiction, fantasy, or horror. But of course we did see it nominated for Best Independent Film and Best Young Actor/Actress. So it's no surprise to see it here too, and it deserves to be in here because how they transformed Jacob Tremblay into a child with a facial condition called Treacher-Collins syndrome. It looks really good. It's very convincing. As for snubs, I think I, Tanya would have been deserving to be in here, especially for the makeup they used on Allison Janney to make her look older when she plays the older version of Tanya Harding's mother. And then also Wonderstruck, because that involves making Julianne Moore look older than she is, but they do a really good job with that there. For Best Music, a lot of great contenders on here, like Coco, fantastic, beautiful score by Michael Giacchino. The Greatest Showman, this is a decent background score. See, the people nominated here, these are the composers of the background score, not the songs. The songs were written by Benj Pasek and Justin Paul, who wrote a lot of the songs for La La Land and, of course, the Broadway musical Dear Evan Hansen. So the Saturn Awards only honor the background music and not the songs. And then Alexander Desplat for The Shape of Water. Beautiful score, my favorite score of 2017. Well deserving of its recent Oscar win, and I hope it wins here. Star Wars The Last Jedi, of course, John Williams, big legend, wonderful score. I don't think I've ever heard John Williams make a bad score. And then Carter Burwell for Wonderstruck. So glad that's finally getting some recognition because that score has been virtually shut out of every major awards ceremony, and it's about damn time it deserved recognition because if you watch Wonderstruck, at least the first half of the movie is entirely reliant on music because the first half of the movie and some parts of the second half play like a silent film. And if you've seen Wonderstruck, you understand exactly what I mean. If you haven't seen it, go see it for yourself, because if I reveal too much more than that, it's going to give away major spoilers. But I'm so glad it finally got recognition, and it well deserved it here. As for music that got snubbed, one of the big contenders here is Hans Zimmer for Dunkirk. How in the hell does that not get nominated here? I mean, that score was epic. It made you feel like you were there at Dunkirk. It made you feel like you were a soldier waiting to see if you could be evacuated out of there and live. And then I thought that had some fantastic music as well, really haunting and really added to the dramatic tension, especially when they encounter Pennywise throughout the various points in the film. Best Production Design, very solid list. Beauty and the Beast, gorgeous production design. Blade Runner 2049, fantastic science fiction production design. Shape of Water, fantastic recreation of the 1960s. Star Wars The Last Jedi, really good production design there. Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. Although I didn't really like the movie too much, I felt the story needed more work. I will say the production design was fantastic. This movie cost like $200 million. It's like the most expensive movie ever made outside of Hollywood. And you can tell they didn't spare a single cent in creating the sets, and they did look gorgeous, so I'll give them that. As for snubs, Dunkirk, a big snub here. I guess they figured, well, since it's mainly set outdoors, it doesn't count, but it did count at the Oscars, so I don't see why it shouldn't have counted here. And Wonderstruck. That would have been nice to see here because Wonderstruck is set in not one but two time periods, the 1920s and the 1970s. So, and both eras are recreated excellent in that. So, Best Special Effects looks like a pretty solid list. You know, I can't really fault most of the contenders, even if I haven't seen them, but I can obviously see why they're here. Although some that I feel should have been considered would be Alien Covenant, I know a lot of people are mixed on that film. I personally liked it, but I thought the effects were pretty good. And then Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets. You can tell they spent a lot of money on the special effects for that film, and even if the film itself may be disappointing with the story, the visual effects were just spectacular. These are the kind of science fiction special effects you want to be seeing in like a big budget movie like this. I probably would have taken Kong Skull Island out and replaced him with one of those, because I've heard Kong Skull Island's visual effects are meh. For best screenplay, a lot of great contenders here, like Blade Runner 2049, Get Out, The Shape of Water. They're all very well deserving to be in here. Can't really comment about the others since I haven't seen them. But some surprising omissions: 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Fantastic screenplay. It's the kind of screenplay only someone like Martin McDonagh could pull off. Wind River, that was a very well-written film. It's written and directed by Taylor Sheridan, who previously wrote films like Sicario and Hell and High Water, and I know he has a new TV show out now called Yellowstone, starring Kevin Costner, and Coco. You know, a lot of animated films don't often have great writing, but Pixar films are usually the exception, and Coco, like most Pixar films, had a fantastic screenplay. I mean, this screenplay was so good, it was one of many reasons why Coco was my number 2 best film of 2017. And I'm not really going to go too much into detail about the film. I'm sure many of you have seen it, but for those who haven't, I'm not going to really reveal about the story because I don't want to spoil it. But let's just say, like most Pixar films, it's very funny, but also very heartwarming, and there are some scenes, especially near the end, where you'll probably start crying. So be prepared for that. Now, as for Best Young Actor or Actress, this is a very solid lineup, you know, for films that fall into science fiction, fantasy, horror. Even if I haven't seen all these films, I've heard massive praise for a lot of these performers, like Daphne Keane and Logan. I've heard nothing but positive praise for her. I have never heard a single person say anything bad about her performance, and I hear a lot of her performances without dialogue. And for a child performer, that's extremely hard to do, especially in a way that gains a lot of praise from people. It's hard for adult actors to do it as well, but for children, you know, you have to have a special kind of talent to pull that off. Sophia Lillis, she was fantastic in It. All the kids were, but I'm guessing her being in here is because in It, the character of Beverly probably has the most dramatic backstory. Because if you're aware of the story of It from any of the adaptations or the book itself, Beverly has probably the worst home life of all the kids, in particular her abusive father. And, you know, a very talented actress would have had to be found to pull that off, and Sophia Lillis, I think she was perfect as Beverly. I think she captured the spirit of Beverly from the book very well, and I can't wait to see what Jessica Chastain will do with the adult version of Beverly when It Chapter 2 comes out next year. So I'm glad at least one of the It kids got in here. If any of them had gotten in, I would have been happy because I thought they were all fantastic. Millicent Simmons, she was amazing in Wonderstruck, and she doesn't speak a word of dialogue because she and her character in the movie are deaf, but she more than holds her own, and anything she does, you can understand what the motivation behind it is. And she was also fantastic earlier this year in A Quiet Place. If you've not yet seen that movie, go see it. It's fantastic. Jacob Tremblay for Wonder. This kid is like the best child actor working today, without question. I mean, this kid has a talent beyond his years that is like insane. He's the kind of child actor who, if he continues as an adult and he continues giving these amazing performances, the question is not if he'll win an Oscar someday, but when he'll win an Oscar. And honestly, if I were an Oscar voter, he probably would have been on my ballot for Best Actor when I was filling it out. I wouldn't have put him in the spot to win because I think Gary Oldman was deserving of his win for Darkest Hour, but Jacob Tremblay, I thought, was amazing in Wonder. He was also amazing in Room a couple of years ago, where he surprisingly lost this category to Ty Simpkins for Jurassic World, which I'll never understand. and maybe he'll win this year as to make up for that, and hopefully he will. He'd be my personal choice to win. But in Wonder, he brings such empathy to his role, and it's amazing to see. Haven't seen Letitia Wright or Zendaya's performances in Black Panther or Spider-Man Homecoming, but I did see Zendaya in The Greatest Showman, and she was good in that for what she was given, because Greatest Showman didn't have the best character development, but she did a good job. And this is really the only thing I've seen her in, because I know she's been a star for a long time on the Disney Channel, but I've never watched any of her shows, because by that time I had already outgrown Disney Channel. As for snubs, there aren't really too many, but I have two here. In addition to Millicent Simmons, I would have also liked to have seen the other main child star from Wonderstruck, Oak Spegley, get a nomination, because he was just as fantastic as Millicent Simmons. And then also Finn Whitehead for Dunkirk. He played the main character we saw at the beginning and at the end, and I believe he's young enough to be in this category. I used to think the age cutoff was 21, because I don't recall ever seeing any actor above that. But we do have Letitia Wright for Black Panther, and I believe she's like 24 or 25. So maybe 25's the cutoff age? I don't know. I've never seen a Saturn Awards rule that states an age limit for this category, but I assume it must be mid-20s, because I don't think you'd want to see a 35-year-old nominated for Best Young Actor or Actress. I know at like the daytime Emmys, where they award younger actors and actresses, I believe their cutoff age is like 25 or 26. Alright, now Best Supporting Actor. This is quite a category. Harrison Ford, he's wonderful in Blade Runner 2049. He doesn't show up until about the last hour, but when he does, he's great. Bill Skarsgård, fantastic in It. A lot of people were wondering who could possibly live up to Tim Curry's portrayal of Pennywise from the 1990 miniseries, but I'd say Bill Skarsgård easily outdoes him. Granted, Tim Curry was one of the best things about the original miniseries, but I do think Bill Skarsgård gets closest to what Stephen King's original version of Pennywise is, and he was damn scary. And I'm sure all the other performances here are great as well, but there was a lot of snubs in this category. Now, there's no possible way all these people could have possibly been in here, but it would have been nice if the Saturn Awards could have recognized at least a few of these people. And so here are some other people for Best Supporting Actor I have that did not get in, but would have been deserving of a nomination anyway. Michael Shannon, The Shape of Water; Richard Jenkins, The Shape of Water; Sam Rockwell, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri; Lil Rel Howery, Get Out; Lakeith Stanfield, Get Out; Bradley Whitford, Get Out; Adam Driver, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Really surprised he didn't make it back in after winning this category 2 years ago for The Force Awakens. Javier Bardem, Mother. I know Mother is a very divisive film, and I do mean, and divisive is quite an understatement actually, but I liked Mother for the most part, except for like a certain scene near the end, and I think most people know what that scene is if you've seen the movie. But I thought Javier Bardem and all the other actors in it were great, and you'll hear more of them in other categories, so heads up for that. Mark Rylance, Dunkirk; John Hamm, Baby Driver; Kelvin Harrington Jr., It Comes at Night; and Michael Fassbender, Alien Covenant; Mark Hamill, Brigsby Bear; and Wes Studi, Hostiles. If I could choose which one of these actors I'd like to see nominated the most, I'd probably say either Michael Shannon, Richard Jenkins, or Sam Rockwell, or one of the actors from Get Out. Either Lil Rel Howery or Bradley Whitford, maybe. It's hard to choose between the two of them. And especially Michael Fassbender for Alien Covenant, because I know while people were divided on Alien Covenant, I know one thing that everybody loved was Michael Fassbender's performances as not one but 2 androids in that movie. Now for Best Supporting Actress, really good lineup here from all those that I've seen. Ana de Armas, she was good. Carrie Fisher and Kelly Marie Tran, they were both great. So was Laura Dern. Marjorie Prime, I've heard a lot of great things about that film, but it never came to my area, and I really wanted to see it, but wasn't able to. And Octavia Spencer for The Shape of Water, really glad to see her here. As for snubs, not as big of a list as Supporting Actor. That's probably my biggest list of snubs. that I could think of, but I would have liked to have seen some of these ladies also get attention here. Allison Janney, I, Tonya, because they did nominate I, Tonya for Best Independent Film, and Allison Janney, of course, won the Oscar earlier this year. Michelle Pfeiffer, Mother. Hong Chow, Downsizing. Lily James, Baby Driver. Carmen Ejogo, It Comes at Night. Julianne Moore, Wonderstruck. Ryan Simpkins, Brigsby Bear. Allison Williams, Get Out. And Catherine Keener, Get Out. Those are my snubs there. I guess if I had to pick which snubs seem the most egregious out of this lot, it would probably be Allison Janney, Michelle Pfeiffer, Hong Chow, Allison Williams, and Catherine Keener. If any of those ladies had been nominated, I would have been very happy. Best Actor, very strong lineup here. Ryan Gosling was great. I know a lot of people are debating of whether Mark Hamill is a lead or supporting for The Last Jedi. Personally, it doesn't matter too much to me because it could easily go either way. I'm guessing the reason why he's nominated here as lead is because Harrison Ford was nominated as lead a few years ago for The Force Awakens, and that was kind of how, like with this new trilogy, they've been kind of using it as a way to both highlight the old and new characters. The Force Awakens was meant to highlight Han Solo, The Last Jedi Luke Skywalker, and I do believe that Episode 9 was meant to highlight Princess Leia before Carrie Fisher's sudden death in late 2016, and obviously now that's not going to happen. Daniel Kaluuya, he was fantastic in Get Out. And Brawl in Cell Block 99, I admit when I heard that title and the fact that Vince Vaughn was going to be in it, I was terrified because I thought, oh, this is a stupid title and Vince Vaughn isn't the best actor. He doesn't always do good movies, but then once in a while he has a good performance like in Hacksaw Ridge. But Brawl in Cell Block 99 is like a 97% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I know a lot of the praise for it was for Vince Vaughn's performance. You know, they say it's much more dramatic than what he normally does, so maybe I'll give it a watch someday. And all the others, of course, are from comic book movies I've not yet seen, but I've heard fantastic things about their performances. As for snubs, there's some pretty surprising snubs in here. Probably the biggest snub that I thought would have easily gotten a nomination is Ansel Elgort for Baby Driver. It's amazing how underrepresented Baby Driver is at the Saturns this year, only getting a nomination for Best Action Movie and nothing for acting or below-the-line categories. Maybe some Saturn voters were uncomfortable giving it a lot of awards attention due to the fact that Kevin Spacey has a significant role in it, and of course we all know now that Kevin Spacey is a pedophile, and his career is pretty much destroyed, and I'm glad Kevin Spacey did not get any nominations for this. And I know there's a lot of debate if someone horrible is in a certain movie, should the movie itself be shunned entirely? And I myself am kind of mixed about that. I'm always going back and forth. But I guess in Baby Driver's case, because since it was such a landmark action film of this decade, doing a lot of things that have often been done in the wrong way, but have been done right now, because most action films don't get good reviews these days, and this one is one of the few done in a good way. Because of that, it would have been nice to see a lot of nominations for it, excluding Kevin Spacey, of course. And some other snubs, John Boyega for Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Surprised he didn't get nominated here, especially since he got nominated for The Force Awakens a few years ago. And then while Emma Watson was nominated for Beauty and the Beast, I'm surprised Dan Stevens wasn't. I know some people weren't fond of his portrayal as the Beast, because Robbie Benson's portrayal from the animated film is so iconic. But I thought Dan Stevens did a good job, and it would have been nice to see him nominated here. Some other snubs I got: Tom Hanks for The Post, Jeremy Renner, Wind River, Kyle Mooney, Brigsby Bear, Christian Bale, Hostiles, Joel Edgerton, It Comes at Night, Jake Gyllenhaal, Life, and Charlie Hunnam, The Lost City of Z. So, Brigsby Bear, that was a unique film that Saturn Award voters should have gone nuts over, but Brigsby Bear got no attention from any major groups. No Critics' Choice, no Golden Globe, no Screen Actors Guild, no BAFTA, no Oscar nominations whatsoever. And it's a damn amazing film. I mean, if you've not yet seen Brigsby Bear, go watch it. And the less you know about it, the better. And the good thing is the trailer for that movie barely shows any of the film. There are no real spoilers in the trailer. Go watch it. You'll be amazed by it. Life, I wish would have gotten more attention beyond Best Science Fiction Film, because that's a film that could have been a disaster because it did look kind of cliched from the trailer. Some people think it's an Alien ripoff, and while it does pay homage to Alien, it manages to stand on its own 2 feet, and it has one of those endings that'll make you go, oh my god. So I wish it would have gotten more nominations for that. Same with The Lost City of Z. I guess you could say that's kind of an action-adventure film in a way, because it's more historical. It's based on the true story of British explorer Percy Fawcett and his quest to find this lost city in the Amazon jungle. And that was one of my favorite films of last year. It was my number 4 best film of 2017. And then for Best Actress, a lot of amazing performances here. Very glad to see Sally Hawkins in here for The Shape of Water. She doesn't speak a single word of dialogue because her character is a mute woman, so she communicates mainly through sign language. But every emotion, every facial movement is sublime in the film, and her performance is quite heartbreaking at times, and everything she does is believable. Frances McDormand, beyond amazing in 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. This is a woman who literally fits the phrase, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And man, she expresses a lot of fury about the stuff in that film. I mean, this is a woman who does not back down from what she believes in, and she's willing to see it through no matter what the consequences are. Rosamund Pike, she was fantastic in Hostiles. Daisy Ridley, even better in The Last Jedi than she was in The Force Awakens, even though she was great there too. And Emma Watson, she was just perfect as a live-action version of Belle from Beauty and the Beast. And I've heard great things about Gal Gadot and Lupita Nyong'o. And this is a pretty strong category overall. But of the snubs, I have Jennifer Lawrence, Mother. Even though I know some people hated her performance, I thought it was really good, and I definitely think she did not deserve a Razzie nomination for it, and I'm glad she did not win that. Elizabeth Olsen, Wind River. Margot Robbie, I, Tonya. Aubrey Plaza, Ingrid Goes West. Rebecca Ferguson, Life. Meryl Streep, The Post. Florence Pugh, Lady Macbeth. Charlize Theron, Atomic Blonde. And Catherine Waterston, Alien Covenant. You know, just like with Allison Janney, I wish Margot Robbie had also been recognized for I, Tonya. And Ingrid Goes West, I wish that had gotten some more awards attention, because Aubrey Plaza was fantastic in it. But I wish it would have been nominated here, and also for Best Independent Film, and I'll get to that in a little bit. Florence Pugh and Lady Macbeth, you would think a film like Lady Macbeth would also be nominated for Best Independent Film, but sadly it wasn't. But Florence Pugh, she was absolutely fantastic in it. And of course, Atomic Blonde, like I said before, had a mixed reception, but Charlize Theron, she more than held her ground in it. And Catherine Waterston for Alien Covenant, again, I think most people can admit she had a good performance in that movie, even if some people didn't like the movie overall. Those are the big snubs out of these snubs, in my opinion. And then Best Director. Got a lot of great contenders in here, like Denis Villeneuve, Jordan Peele, Guillermo del Toro, Rian Johnson, all well-deserved their nominations. And of course, Guillermo del Toro won at the Oscars earlier this year. But some big snubs, and these are the 2 biggest in my opinion: Christopher Nolan, Dunkirk, and Edgar Wright, Baby Driver. Nobody but those directors could have pulled off those films. And if you were going to give those films at least one other nomination, Best Director should have been that nomination. Some other snubs include Darren Aronofsky, Mother. Again, some people will disagree with me on that, but only a director with a lot of balls like Darren Aronofsky has in terms of pulling off WTF moments in films could have pulled a film like that off. And then also Martin McDonagh, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and Andy Muschietti, It. You know, both those films were films that in the wrong director's hands could have been epic disasters, but thankfully they were not. For Best Animated Film, what is with the continued recognition of The Boss Baby? Yeah, it made a lot of money, but it's not a good movie. I know animation was kind of weak last year, but You could have nominated, I don't know, the Lego Batman movie. I'm surprised that's still getting snubbed, or even the Lego Ninjago movie. I know a lot of people were mixed on Ninjago, but almost everyone thought it was better than The Boss Baby. Despicable Me 3 and Cars 3, they were fine. But I'm so glad at least Coco got nominated here, because if Coco had been snubbed, people would have been furious, and that was easily the best animated film of last year. So I'm glad at least that got in. Best International Film. It would have been nice to see a couple more Oscar contenders in here, like A Fantastic Woman, the film from Chile, which won Best Foreign Language Film, and also Loveless, that's that film from Russia, that was also nominated at the Oscars by an anti-Putin director, no less. And it would have been, and that's a very powerful film as well. So, Best Independent Film, I already mentioned Ingrid Goes West and Lady Macbeth, and I feel they should have been in here. Best Comic Book Film, I can't talk about those because I haven't seen them. Best Action or Adventure Film, solid list for the most part, with Baby Driver, Dunkirk, Hostels. It may not seem like an action-adventure film, but it kind of is, at least for a historical film it is. Kingsman: The Golden Circle, to a certain extent, I'm in the middle with that film. Some people thought it was very disappointing, others thought it was very underrated. I thought it was okay. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. It's nowhere near as good as the first film, but it did have some impressive action sequences. But one film I don't think should have been in here at all is The Greatest Showman. What on earth about that film counts as action or adventure? Nothing. Yeah, some musicals could be action or adventure if they have it in there, but Greatest Showman doesn't have action or adventure. If you count dance sequences to be action or adventure, I guess, but I don't. Unless it was an action sequence involving war or something. Oh. Yeah, Greatest Showman, that should have been taken out and replaced with Atomic Blonde, if you could replace one film with another. Because Atomic Blonde at least had that amazing stairway fight sequence. Best Fantasy Film, pretty solid list. Beauty and the Beast, Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, The Shape of Water, absolutely incredible that those films are in there. Downsizing, I myself like the film. It's another film people are split on. I guess I can see why it would be fantasy, because it involves people who are literally shrunk to about 1/5 of an inch and live in these little shrunken communities. But it seems kind of more science fiction to me than fantasy, even though it doesn't feel like your typical science fiction. But I guess it's one of those films that doesn't really have a definitive label for it to be stuck in a certain genre. Best Horror Film, 47 Meters Down, it was mediocre. That twist at the end was just insulting. Get Out, very glad to see that in here. It, of course. Mother, there might be some people debating whether it should count as a horror film. At first, I didn't think so, but then as we got towards the end and a certain thing happened, then I say yes. But Mother is one of those films that kind of defies genres, so you could kind of put it in almost any genre. You could classify it as horror, you could classify it as just plain drama. Well, certainly not comedy or science fiction or fantasy. Well, I guess fantasy to a certain extent, but not those other genres. And Best Thriller Film, pretty solid lineup with Murder on the Orient Express. I feel that's an underrated film. I liked it. Not amazing, but it held my attention. The Post, definitely a good historical thriller film. A very good dramatic telling of the Pentagon Papers scandal. And definitely a showcase for why the media is important and why the good newspapers, should be trusted to report what politicians don't want reported, especially if it's stuff that makes them look bad, because if politicians are doing bad stuff, then we need to be aware of it so that we can replace them with actually competent people. Suburbicon, it isn't really that much of a thriller, I mean, certainly nothing like Wind River or Murder on the Orient Express. I mean, if you count people who try to kill other people by poisoning them as a thriller, then I guess. But Suburbicon itself is not a very good movie. It's George Clooney trying way too hard to create a Coen Brothers movie that the Coen Brothers themselves should have directed. Apparently it was based on a script that they had started writing but then stopped because they weren't satisfied. And then George Clooney and Grant Heslov finished writing it, and as a result it's just a jumbled mess, and it's also an incredibly mean-spirited film. You know, having mean-spirited characters doesn't always destroy a film, but when you have mean-spirited characters and there's almost no one redeemable, then that's a problem for me. There's one character in Suburbicon that's redeemable, and that's the character of Nicky, who's Matt Damon's character's son, played by, what's his name, Noah Jupe, who was also in the film Wonder, and in that miniseries The Night Manager. He was the only likable character in the whole movie. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri and Wind River, fantastic to see them in there. And then Best Science Fiction Film, very solid lineup, I think. Alien Covenant, I personally think that deserves to be in here. I know others will disagree, but I loved Alien Covenant a lot. It was in my honorable mentions of last year. Blade Runner 2049, of course. Life, glad to see that in here. I wish I'd gotten some more nominations beyond that. Best Visual Effects would have also been great, as well as the acting nominations I wish it had gotten as well. Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, of course. Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, I personally wouldn't have nominated it in this category, because I thought the movie itself as a whole was just meh. And then War for the Planet of the Apes, of course I can see why that's in there. So if there are any other films that you feel got snubbed that I did not mention, it's probably because I did not see those films. And so therefore if I haven't seen them, I can't say myself that they were snubbed, because I haven't seen them. So those are my thoughts on the Saturn Awards nominations. I forgot to say at the beginning that the ceremony itself will be held on, I think, this coming Wednesday, June 27th. And hopefully soon afterwards, when I get the time, I will report back on what the winners are and what I think of them. So please subscribe to my channel if you've not yet already done so you can get my newest videos as soon as they're uploaded. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!